Welcome to the United Way Difference, featuring Oshkosh area United Way agencies and events. Your host for the United Way Difference is Executive Director Sue Ponick.
Hi, and welcome to the United Way Difference. I'm Sue Ponick from United Way, and my guests today are Judy Ritchie, who is the coordinator for the Meals on Wheels program. I think of her as kind of, to use a phrase, the big cheese of the Meals on Wheels program, and one of our volunteer drivers, Mary Madden. So we're going to learn about Meals on Wheels today and how beneficial this program is in our community. So thank you both for being here.
Oh, thank you.
Judy, I'm going to start with you about, a lot of people I think know about Meals on Wheels, but they don't know some of the details about Meals on Wheels. So first of all, do you want to just talk about what the program is and
what it maybe isn't?
Maybe what it isn't, and then how it came about.
Well, we'll do a little bit of the history. We started in 1966. We are one of the first home-delivered meal programs in the state of Wisconsin. So we predate the Older American Act programs like the Winnebago County Nutrition Program at AdvoCap and programs similar to that. We started out with a very few individuals receiving meals, and we had maybe 8 or 10 drivers at the time. And we grew to the point of being in excess of 100 to 120 individuals being served with lots and lots of volunteers. And then the numbers have dropped a little bit over the years because there's more options out in the community. But at the same time, what we're doing is providing a warm noon meal that's been prepared at Evergreen Retirement Community. It is appropriate to older adults, nutrition-wise. We can do any of the special diets that the doctors order, so the diabetic, heart healthy, gluten-free, renal, we can do it. And then we individualize a little bit further so that if someone doesn't like fish, we'll send maybe a beef patty or a piece of chicken, and they can even specify light meat versus dark meat chicken.
Holy cow.
Because we want them to have a meal that they're going to eat.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times the reason they come to us is they haven't been eating properly. And to have that meal there makes a difference. They get a protein, starch, and vegetable in the hot tray, and a salad, dessert, bread, and margarine in the cold tray. Other than this past summer, we switched it up and gave them a nice chicken salad in the cold tray and a warm roll or dessert in the hot tray.
Oh, cool.
So life is short, eat dessert first.
So, but you talked about eating right and the nutritional value of the foods that you deliver. Why is that so important as you're starting to get older? Or is it, it's important all the time, but why is it so important as you're getting older?
First of all, 4 out of 5 Americans over the age of 50 have at least one chronic condition. And as they get older, there's more chronic conditions in there, which means that those are long-term issues, cardiac, diabetes, things like that. The other is we say that the cost of the Meals on Wheels for a year is about the same cost as one day in the hospital. And
wow.
we see a lot of hospitalizations that people are either undernourished or malnourished from not eating properly.
And that's preventable.
It is preventable to an extent.
Yeah, it's a different story if I fall and hurt myself and I have to go into the hospital.
Right.
That was probably preventable too, but I have to, because something's injured, I have to go in. But if you're not eating well, you can prevent that by either going on this program or, and you said in some cases it's preventable. What are cases that it's really not preventable? Are you talking about the person's income not enough to afford good food, or?
Well, sometimes people are lacking in income. Sometimes they are, and Mary will testify to this with her background too, people are they've come through the Depression and they're looking at hanging on to every penny they can because they want to leave something to their children. So they'll make choices between medications or food. My own dad, as much as I talked to him, when, before he passed away, he would take that little storage container that was meant to be one meal with, the meat and the vegetables and the potatoes and gravy, and he'd try to stretch that out to 2 or 3 meals because he wasn't hungry. His dentures didn't fit well, and again, that would have been preventable had he have had them taken care of when he was younger, but the bone loss over time. A lot of our seniors are dehydrated. They don't drink enough fluids. I'm in a 55 and up building, and I'm known as the ice cube lady. I have a mug that I keep filling with ice cubes, and I've always got my water with me. Years ago, you weren't allowed to have something to drink at your workstation or anything, and now it's encouraged. So it's education, I think.
Well, also I think it's a generation. I've talked about that with my friends now that we're retired and we were all grown up. You didn't eat snacks during the day. You ate your meals at a time. And as you get older, if you're not hungry or that schedule changes some. And I think the beauty of this, and a lot of the people who we deliver to, they'll eat the hot meal at lunchtime and they put that cold part in the refrigerator. I was telling Judy the other day, I'd always look in there for the dessert because Evergreen makes the best dessert. That's what we got talking about, eat dessert first.
Yeah.
Because with some we have to help them a little bit and open up the lid so then I really see what the meal is. But Judy is so right, the nutrition. And who wants to cook for themselves?
It really is boring.
It's boring, it's hard, and I think so many that we've seen on the route are really very frail. And so for them to go in the kitchen and cook up mashed potatoes and gravy and roast a piece of chicken,
right.
I live to be in my 80s. I hope I don't have to do it. I want Meals on Wheels.
Well, and the other thing is they are used to standing and cooking at the stove. You and I are the ones that would use the crock pot all the time. And I talk about that.
Well, maybe you would. I don't cook.
Okay, I'm sorry. I still do.
I use the crock pot still. I hear you.
I've tried it, but I'm just not really good at it.
I live alone, and I use the crock pot a lot. And I do things that I'm not eating the same thing for a week at a time. And again, because of where I live, it's easy to share with a neighbor or, Pete in our office. And so
Pete'll eat anything.
Pete'll eat anything. So I'll take my leftovers in and Pete will eat them. But those types of things are an encouragement to eat a healthier meal. I don't do fast foods as a general rule. I just don't care for them. But I will, maybe when I've gone for a restaurant, I'll order something such that I can take home and have another entire meal. And it may be higher in sodium. My blood pressure is low, so for me, that's not a factor. But for somebody else, it would be.
Right.
Plus, I think a lot of our folks, it's very difficult for them to get out alone.
Right.
They're really dependent on, especially in the winter. In the winter, you see such a need.
Right.
And not last winter, not that last winter was good, but the winter before was just
horrible
awful.
with the extreme cold.
And so many said to us when we delivered, I haven't been out in weeks because their driveway was nothing but, if I was his daughter, I'd be afraid to take him out because there was so much ice,
Right.
To have a good grip on him so he didn't fall. And so you really see that. In the summer, maybe it's a little bit easier, especially for those who are driving, but for a lot of them, they're the first to admit, I'm afraid to go out. It's so icy and snowy and everything. And it's even more important to eat, I think, in the winter because you need that inner fuel to keep you warm.
Right. And you mentioned something else, though, that they're in their homes, and Judy, you and I have talked about the isolation factor.
Yes.
And so, but also the safety factor, so that if you're seeing, and now how many times do you deliver, Mary?
Well, in the winter we deliver every week.
Okay.
In the summer we kind of take off a little bit.
Oh, she had, I think, a whole month or more off this past summer.
But and one of the reasons why I like being a substitute, my husband and I deliver together, is because we have the different routes. And first of all, because we're able as drivers to go anywhere, and because I'm a retired social worker, I'm really not too afraid to go in anywhere to find anything or talk to Judy on the phone when we've got a problem and everything. But the other thing is that you just see how well people can still manage at home, you know, with a little help. And when they need a little more help, then sometimes when I see it, I call
She
Judy.
tells me, and then I talk to the individual or their family, and we help to bring services into their home.
Right, because you said just one meal a day for a year is cheaper than one day stay at the hospital.
Correct.
So, you know, and I know that they have other expenses, but again, you mentioned that the frugality of this generation that you're right now serving. So it would make sense that, number one, they would split meals, but also they're not going to turn on the stove for themselves, because that seems to be a waste of energy. Why am I going to cook all this just for me?
Well, and when we start talking a little bit the same thing, money, but the environment within the home. In the summertime, we see people that don't even have a fan going, let alone air conditioning. So we're always looking for the heat-related issues. In the wintertime, they're sitting there bundled up with the heat way low because they're concerned about the utility bill. And again, we have energy assistance, we have other programs in the community but they're too proud to apply for them. Or, you know, maybe they're not eligible because their income is higher. But those are things that we're watching for.
Now, I know that Judy will kill me for this one, but I know that all the volunteers are a godsend. But with your background, Mary, in social work, you've really got to be a even better godsend, because you can identify some things that maybe I wouldn't be able to identify because I don't have that background. I mean, I might see something, or something might seem amiss to me, but you could pretty much start to pinpoint things, be able to call Judy and let her know. So what kind of training do people like me get who wouldn't have that same expertise as Mary has to be able to be a good driver, and to be able to be that extra pair of eyes in the house to make sure that that person is functioning well?
I do an orientation. Well, first of all, to be a volunteer, we have an application, but we do criminal background checks. We do references. And because you wouldn't want someone going into your mother's home that has a not so desirable background.
You're right.
We don't take the court-referred volunteers or anything.
Okay.
So anyway, the training I do is an orientation. We go over all the general guidelines of the program as far as on the recipient side. And then we talk about a lot of safety issues, and when you deliver the meals, these are the things that you're allowed to do. These are the things that you don't do. So if you find somebody on the floor, you're going to call 911 immediately, and then you're going to call me so that we can call family. I grab the file, I meet the emergency personnel at the home. You stay put until help arrives and I've cleared it for you to go on, or I'll cover your route for you. So we do things like that. After I've gone through all these details and some of the things that have happened in the past so that you understand why we're doing it, then I send you out with one of the regular drivers. And with that, you get to see it from a little different context. And I think Mary can really, cover it. And yes, I do depend on Mary. And she's helped me refine my skills even further. So,
Okay, before we go to break, can you tell me a success story? Either one of you?
Well, to me, a success story are a couple of my favorites that I've had, and both people. There was a woman and there was a gentleman, both of them 100 and still living independently. And the woman was just a little sweetheart, you know what I'm talking about. And, she made your day every day you came in. And they're all grateful, but when she looked at you and said, "Thank you so much, that was so nice of you," you just felt that you really did a very important deed today.
Okay.
The other gentleman couldn't see. And my husband would always comment, it's amazing how he manages. And I said, yes. And the personal care worker who would come in the morning, there was always a big sign, be sure to get out, and his name, his Snicker bar. Well, my husband's favorite candy bar is Snicker. He said, I want that sign. He says, when I'm 100, I want that sign. Give me my Snicker bar. So I don't let him have a Snicker bar every day.
Every day, I know.
He's got to make to be 100 first.
Yes. Well, when you're 100, you can pretty much do
Then you can have whatever
then
you
you
want.
can eat whatever you want, but make sure you're eating and drinking.
Right.
Judy, we were talking about training, and we've got just like a minute before we're going to go to break. How do you recruit your volunteers in order to get them there and train them?
The best way of recruiting volunteers is a satisfied volunteer.
Okay.
Because
Like a Mary.
Like a Mary. And she's already done that for us. She has her neighbors. But people look at it when I'm asking, you're paid to ask.
Yeah.
And if you've got a volunteer that's happy with what they're doing, their energy and enthusiasm carries over. And people will say, I want a part of that too. And so we do a lot of that. I contact churches. I do a certain amount through the newspapers. But that
Before we go to break, I'm going to have them put up the screen that says the contact information of how to contact you.
Okay.
And you can keep talking.
Okay. But that personal reference from a friend or something is much better.
Okay.
Sometimes our recipient families will either volunteer or encourage something.
Okay, Judy, do you want to read that information for those that are listening?
For more information on Meals on Wheels, either for the program itself or to volunteer, would be to contact me, Judy Ritchie, at 651-3316, or my email address is jarmow@oshkoshfamily.org. And that phone number rings directly through to my desk.
Okay. And we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to be talking with Mary Madden, one of the volunteer Meals on Wheels drivers, and Judy Ritchie, who coordinates the program. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned.
Whatever we deny or embrace, for worse or for better, we belong together.
Underneath everything we are, underneath everything we do, we are all people, connected, interdependent, united. And when we reach out a hand to one, we can influence the condition of all. That's what it means to live united.
This year, United Way worked to ensure quality childcare for over 6,500 children in Kansas City. To do so, we coordinated the efforts of 95 providers, 11 partners, and 8 different funders. We helped thousands of families in 8 different counties. But the number of centers and services doesn't really matter. What matters are the children now with a chance and families now with a future.
Hi, and welcome back to United Way Difference. My guests today are Judy Ritchie, coordinator of the Meals on Wheels program, and Mary Madden, who is a volunteer driver for the Meals on Wheels program. Before we went to break, we were talking about volunteers and how important they are to the program. Let's face it, Judy, if you didn't have volunteers, the program
We really couldn't function as we are. We couldn't
Right.
be as affordable as we are.
Okay, and well, let's talk about that. How affordable is this?
It's becoming more of a challenge for many people simply because food costs, as you know, when you go to the grocery store, food costs have gone up. People who are on the program pay only for the cost of the meal as it is through our contract with Evergreen. So they're not paying for any of the overhead of the program. They're not paying for delivery. They're not, paying for all these additional pieces that go in there, and they're not paying for the safety visit that we do each day along with the meal. So that being said, we're so grateful for the money that we do get from the United Way, because we use that to help offset part of the cost of the meal for certain individuals that are of very, very limited income.
So really, everyone could afford this program.
Hopefully they could.
Yeah.
Some choose not to, and that, again, that is their choice.
But I think if you would look at the cost of Meals on Wheels, my neighbor recently went on Meals on Wheels, and she said to me, and I have someone come in and clean, and I have someone come in and help with my personal care. And she said, am I missing anything, Mary? And I said, no, I think you're doing real well. And those 3 costs do not anywhere compare to the cost of a nursing home or even assisted living. So I think sometimes, you know, and I know Judy does that, you really have to get family involved to convince mom or dad that this is really a way to spend their money. And even like Judy said, going into the hospital, you know, the cost of Meals on Wheels for the whole year equals 1 day. And I don't care really what kind of Medicare plan you have, you're paying for that first day.
Right.
You know? So, you know, you have to look at it in the framework of how you spend your money. And really, the majority of the people that we see, I think that's why people my age enjoy our retirements much, because we know now's the time that we can travel, we can go, we can visit, we can do things. But the time comes through illness and any aging that you aren't going to be able to do that. And the costs of how you spend your money really shift. And you have to spend more this way. You know, we go out to eat and it's a treat, but I mean, we do. I still like to cook, so I cook a lot. So these folks, they aren't going out, they aren't cooking. So the cost of their food is really what Meals on Wheels are doing, and the few things that, you know, family brings them. And the social worker in me, I open the refrigerator as much as I can. Sorry,
and that's,
but that's
You
just
have permission.
right. Well,
she's
especially-
putting the cold tray in.
Right.
And the thing
you know,
is, families usually are really good about bringing things over, but mom or dad does not really have the incentive, and that may be a wrong term. They don't have the inclination
Or the motivation.
Exactly.
to put it in the microwave and warm it up. It's easier to grab a donut or, you know, a few pieces of candy, chocolate.
Right.
You know, and chocolate is not all bad. Chocolate is actually very good for you.
Right.
But you need to have a few things besides that.
Right.
Right.
And I think especially in the winter time, or when people ask me, you know, would you put this, oftentimes they will ask us to get them a bottle of water or some milk out of the refrigerator and whatever, and we never hesitate to do that, especially in the winter, because there were days 2 years ago the meals had to be canceled because we were in the midst of a blizzard.
Yeah.
You know, and to make sure that there is some food there that they can go and nibble on if the meal is canceled.
And when Mary said, you know, that we've had to cancel because of the weather, one of the things that we do is we, myself primarily, call each and every person who's on the program on that day, and we'll ask, you know, or we'll let them know that we're not coming because, and then are you going to be okay today? And if I hear anything that gives me cause for concern, and I'm listening for the tone of the voice sometimes more than what they're saying,
And hesitation.
and I will call their family and let them know, or I'll call a neighbor and let them know, you know, can you please check on Mr. So-and-so because, and you know, those families, those neighbors are so good about that. And I mean, years ago we had a lady, there was actually a television interview from one of the Green Bay stations, and they met with a lady and me, and her comment was she never felt like she was being neglected, abandoned, or anything, because I always called to make sure she was okay that day, you know, if we were canceling. And I didn't have to pay her to do it. She just, that was the way she felt.
But that's good feedback for you in the program,
It
too,
is.
to know
It
that
is.
it's really an important service that you are providing. And many times it's above and beyond what normally may be provided by other programs.
Most programs will just put an announcement on the radio or the television, or they'll say if the schools are closed, this is. We've had to cancel in the summertime when we had the bad storm that took all the trees down through the city. We've had to cancel in the summertime because there was flooding, and Evergreen had water in the building, and they were having trouble even meeting the needs of the residents, let alone our program. So again, we called everybody, we explained the situation. People are very good. You know, one out of everyone on the program may be unhappy because we're not coming, but everybody else is really, really understanding and accommodating, because not only do we expect communication from them, but we communicate with them.
Right. So, Mary, you've already mentioned that you're retired, but Judy, are all the volunteers retired?
No, they're not.
So let's talk about a typical Meals on Wheels driver.
There is not one.
Good answer.
We occasionally have high school students.
How old do you have to be?
They have to have a valid driver's license.
Okay.
If they're under 18, I require parental consent.
Okay.
And more often than not, the high school students we get, the parents have already been delivering meals. And
Oh,
so we get
okay.
them that way.
And we've got some information about requirements
That was
for
what we
volunteers.
talked about.
Yeah.
We need the background check, the valid driver's license, their own personal vehicle, proof of insurance. We also have to have them able to enter and exit their vehicle several times in the course of the route, because it is getting in and out of the vehicle.
Right.
We're not doing a drive-by with a Frisbee.
Whoosh.
They have to be able to walk short distances and climb stairs as necessary.
Okay.
We accommodate as much as we can those that have difficulty climbing stairs, but we can't eliminate all steps, so there may be 2 or 3 steps that they have to go up. So we're really careful about that. And there are certain volunteers that I'm more hesitant of having them, be safe in the wintertime, where their mobility is a little more impaired. And on the day that it's really not nice out there, I will call them and inform them they have a vacation day that day. And I may sub the route, or we may have somebody that's called in, say Mary's husband, saying, we've got nothing going on, it's an awful day today, I'm sure you've got somebody that's not delivering, so we'll cover. So we work around all sorts of things.
So and how about getting your volunteers that you talked about Mary sharing it with her neighbors, and so she's recruited a few people, but where else do you have any businesses? I mean, how can the community get involved?
Anybody can call, and we have what we call corporate routes or service club routes. So Southwest Rotary, the former Early Bird Kiwanis, we have Noon Kiwanis, we have Anchor Bank, we have Community First Credit Union. I'm trying to remember but we have a number of groups that way. And with those, what they have are anywhere between 4 and 10 or more individuals that will take turns, and over a period of a month or 3 months, that they're going out once or twice during that time. A regular volunteer, it delivers basically the same route week to week. They're minimal
The entire
changes.
week?
One day, but each week.
Okay.
And then we have subs like Mary, who will, she lets me know what days she's available, and then I assign her to whatever route needs subbing for that week. And she's always got the right to say no. And she has on a couple of occasions, and that's okay. That's one of the joys of being a volunteer.
Right.
You can say no.
It's one of the joys of being retired. The first thing you learn when you're in the human service world as a worker, and then when you retire, you practice saying no.
Practice saying no. Okay, I'll practice that. I've got a few more years. but I'll
Except that I put
practice that.
but I've got the right to negotiate.
Oh, okay.
That also contains no.
Well, Mary, you've already told me what the recipients get out of the program. What do you get out of the program as a volunteer?
Well, I get the Meals on Wheels was the very first thing that I volunteered for when my husband and I retired, and that's because I started with Judy way back.
Non-traditional student with us.
Non-traditional.
Yeah.
And I know how important it is for them. But what I get personally, both my husband and I, is you feel really good. It makes you feel good that you're helping, you're contributing, you're giving back in your community in this way. And that's a nice feeling, even when it's cold or when it's really hot. The other thing is, I hope there'll be volunteers someday when I can't do it anymore, or my husband can't do it anymore, and we want meals to come to ours. That's how you pass it on.
Okay.
And you left out one important thing. You see an immediate
Yes.
effect of what you're doing.
Yes, you
Yeah,
do.
sometimes in this field you don't. I mean,
No.
you work, and
Yes,
things
yes.
happen after you're gone. But
Right.
this, you do see it
You
right
do.
then.
The majority of the people that you bring the meal to always say, thank you, have a good day.
Well, I want to say thank you to you for doing what you're doing, and Judy, I appreciate how much you do in the community anyway. So, if you'd like more information on Meals on Wheels, please contact Judy Ritchie at Meals on Wheels, and the number is 920-651-3316. And thank you for watching our program, and thanks for supporting United Way.